Hey guys, this is Undercover Dudes all the way from Down Under, and today we're going to be discussing Realm Royale, its life, death and rebirth, along with why this game may become one of the most popular Battle Royale titles of 2019. Realm Royale is a free-to-play Battle Royale game released on Steam on the 1st of June 2018, and the reaction to the game was astonishing. On its first day live, Realm Royale hit 104,557 peak players, a great response for a free-to-play game, especially given it was released only on Steam. People were captivated by its easy-to-understand shooting and movement mechanics, but also with the in-depth abilities and weapons, making this game easy to pick up but hard to master. The ability to mount a horse to traverse the map also reduced a significant amount of downtime, making Realm Royale a unique title in the saturated Battle Royale market. And from day one, Realm Royale solidified itself as the game to play if Fortnite's building-centric gameplay wasn't for you, and from that, a large fan base was formed. But as the months went on, the player base started to dwindle, with a peak of 23,576 players in the next month of July, a reduction of almost 75%. Such a staggering decrease must have had a reason, and all of them could be pinned solely on the developers Hi-Rez. Hi-Rez was adamant on changing basically every part of Realm Royale with no consultation from the community. Changes like locking weapons to specific classes, making legendary weapons drop from crates, and only opening one queue type at a time really strained the community, especially when these changes were not being trialed on the test server at all. This is on top of the terrible server lag issues which plagued every match of Realm Royale, with rubber banding, packet loss, and high ping. Simply, Realm Royale servers were a complete mess, and players left in troves. However, the part which frustrated me the most was the absence of any communication from Hi-Rez. No tweets, no Reddit posts, no Discord updates. Hi-Rez was silent as they changed the game at their will, while turning a blind eye to the fundamental technological issues and the feedback from the very dedicated community. At this point, I gave up on Realm Royale. I made one last video called Realm Royale is Dying and predicted that this game would fail, and then I uninstalled, vowing never to play it again. As predicted, the game fell to lower and lower lows, with a peak player count of 2,744 in October 2018. The game was definitely not dead at that point, but it was on track to die. However, after that, the player count suddenly started to rise. A peak of 4,700 in November, 8,300 in January 2019, 9,800 in the last 30 days. Why are people playing Realm Royale today? Well, we're going to be taking a look. The first and most significant reason is in regards to the gameplay experience, as the developers have committed to a direction and it works. Hit-scan weapons are weaker but easy to use, while projectile weapons are powerful but require more skill. Abilities and weapons can now be used by all classes. However, with the new loadout system, it means that certain classes benefit more with certain weapons and abilities. To give an example, the warrior has a talent which gives a 20% increase in damage with swords, axes and hammers, along with other similar talents for abilities with cooldown reductions and so on. This means that using the recommended weapons and abilities for each class is optimal as you're just going to be putting out more damage, but everything is open so you can do whatever you want. The loadout system is very comprehensive, meaning that there is a ton of ways to build your character, very unorthodox ways, but they can go and work. And that opens up another layer of depth, and we'll go and talk about this a little bit later on in the video. Now, looking at the Forge, which was always a gameplay element that was difficult to balance, it now has its place in the game. You can forge armor potions, health potions, weapons, abilities, and so on, but also a new item called runes. These are basically passive attributes that buff your character, like 15% increased damage, 50% increased healing, increased move speed as a chicken, and so on. These runes add yet another layer to the gameplay, and they're easily accessible and quick to figure out. Now yes, some of them, like the passive armor regen rune, are arguably overpowered, but the system right now is in a good place, and that's great. Overall, the gameplay issues which plagued the earlier stages of Realm Royale have been ironed out more or less, and it's easy to see that Hi-Rez knows what they want this game to be, and the community is loving it because their feedback is being directly put into the game, and it's a bit of a back and forth relationship. I'll be going more into the gameplay in a later section, so make sure to go and stick around for that as well. With Realm Royale in a fantastic state, Hi-Rez took the next big step of bringing this game to the console, that being Xbox One and a PS4. This skyrocketed the player base as the console market had never experienced this game, and now their first impressions was of arguably the best patch in the history of Realm Royale. People started to play, and then more, and then more, and then more, with Hi-Rez announcing on Twitter that more than 120,000 people were playing this game concurrently. This was a few weekends ago, and the PC player base is only around 10,000 players or so 50,000 people on each console is nothing to laugh at. Add on to this that Nintendo items were found in the latest data mine, and it's safe to say that Realm Royale is coming to Switch as well, which is super exciting. While all of this may be a bit worrying for PC players, please note that there is Xbox One and PC crossplay, so getting into matches is no problem, but you can also go and thank the addition of bots for that. When Realm Royale was at its lowest of lows, Hi-Rez decided to implement bots to fill out the player count in matches. When this was found out, the community backlash was intense, but it made a lot of sense, and still makes a lot of sense to this day. If only 20 to 30 players in a match are human, the game will fill out the other 70 slots with bots. 10 people in a game, 90 bots, so on and so on. The phrase bot sounds like these NPCs are terrible though, but they can go and aim quite well, and in a group they may take a bit of effort to take down. Now, the artificial intelligence Hi-Rez has coded into these bots is quite sophisticated as well, so to new players that are just playing Realm Royale, it doesn't really seem like you're playing against bots, more so just a few bad players. So with these bots in the game, the early game feels more like an MMO of sorts, where you farm kills, get abilities and weapons, and get ready for the more intense stages of the match. Now, if you do go and drop at highly populated places like Lumberfall, you'll be guaranteed to find human players, but for the newer players that want a more casual early game with still a little bit of action, the other points of interest are there. Moving into the mid and late game, the bots fade away and it's straight PvP action, so realistically only the early game is affected by this addition. However, it's still somewhat common to find a bot just creeping around as your final opponent in a solos match. I was a bit apprehensive when I first found out that bots were added, but seeing them in action, it makes the game flow really well. Regardless if you're a new player or a veteran, getting to the mid game is possible, and that means the learning curve is smooth. You can learn what the game is really about in your own time without being annihilated as soon as you drop. Now, as the player base does get bigger and bigger, it will have less and less bots in each match, but I think a system should be in place to keep these bots in game to some degree. What I mean by that is maybe a separate queue like co-op vs AI or solo vs AI where you versus the bots, and so you can do it as a bit of training if you're not really comfortable hopping into the main queue. Whatever system Hi-Rez goes and chooses, I think having bots in the game to some degree is really important because their AI is actually really good, and if you're a new player, they're perfect to go and test out how the weapons go and feel without just going and hopping into like a training mode where you're just shooting dummies and stuff like that. It feels a little bit more responsive and you can really work out how the weapons and abilities feel in this game. Looking a bit more back from just the gameplay repercussions, bots ensure that queues pop at all times, even on the Australian server late at night. Yes, there might be only 10 or so people playing in the game, but a good half of those players get to late game, so it's still quite fun and it feels like an actual match. I do think though that the queues pop a little bit too fast in these low player count situations. I would be happy to wait 2 to 3 minutes to go and get a lobby of 30 to 40 people rather than have an almost instant queue pop of just 10 people. This is probably an isolated situation given the Australian player base for this game is quite small, but I still think it's worth talking about given that it is a really cool concept, these bots right now in the game, and how they go and integrate with the gameplay is very important. With many of the core concepts covered, I wanted to go back to the loadout system and emphasize why I believe this is an absolutely fundamental part of Realm Royale's DNA. The loadout system introduces two very important elements, that being progression and customization. As you play more and more with a certain class, you will go and earn XP, and that XP will level up your class. At certain levels, you'll go and unlock certain parts of that class's loadout, which is visualized by the mastery page. Now, this is not something where you can go and play for a few hours and unlock everything. You need to go and put some heavy hours into each class to go and fully unlock everything, and that is fantastic. Not only are you playing Realm Royale to have fun and win matches, but you're also playing to change your class up. Now, note that I didn't say make your class more powerful because that's really subjective. If you go with one talent, you miss out on the others, with all of them having strengths and weaknesses. For example, with the Mage's weapon talent, you can go and decide between Mage's Arsenal, which gives a 20% damage buffs to Stone Staves, Frost Staves, and Bolt Staves, and the other three, which give damage bonuses in more specific circumstances with specific weapons. Now in general, Mage's Arsenal is better across the board, hence why it's a default one that you get when you just load up the game. But if you want a build around the Frost Stave, you have to go and give up the general bonus, and that can go and hurt. These type of decisions are made across the board with a loadout, meaning that you can go and be powerful in certain situations and with certain weapons and abilities, but weaker with others, or weaker in general, but still quite strong. Add in the RNG aspect of getting weapons from the forge and abilities, there's also talent where it guarantees you can go and get a certain weapon or certain ability from the forge, but that goes and takes away other stuff that you could go and have. So it's very much a trade up, and it's really, really cool. People go and argue that this progression can be found in Fortnite with the Battle Pass, and Realm Royale does have a Battle Pass as well, but this is purely cosmetic and doesn't captivate your interest nearly as long as a system like the loadout system, which directly influences your gameplay. I'm super impressed with Hi-Rez's ambition and attention to detail with this aspect, and it's something that I believe will really go and draw people into the game, not for the short term, but for the long term, where they're really liking the core gameplay and they want to go and take it a step further. This is where that comes in. However, progression doesn't go and end there, as Realm Royale has a ranked system. Now the word rank has a connotation with competitive in gaming, but in Realm Royale it's quite simple. Win more matches and your rank goes up, but it can never go down as it takes your top 50 games, and if 50 out of the 50 games are wins, you go and get the master rank. Now this may seem a little bit worthless, but seeing your rank gradually increase is pretty sweet. However, where the rank system comes into its own is fighting for Grandmaster, which is the top 50 players with the most kills in the master rating. It's not the most significant part of the game, but it is quite fun, and it visualizes your skill increase, something that Fortnite hasn't got. During June 2018, the worst part of the Realm Royale experience was by far the performance. The servers were simply horrid and it made the game unplayable. I'm very happy to say that this issue has been resolved, with Hi-Rez implementing rock-solid servers in almost every major region. The reason for so many servers is apparent if you play with more than 200 ping. Projectile weapons become almost impossible to use and it ruins the gameplay experience. Hit scan weapons go and work fine, however due to these weapons being rightfully underpowered, it means you're quite handicapped. This forces you to go and play in your own server, which makes the experience very enjoyable all round. I also want to go and mention the technical performance of Realm Royale because it is quite impressive. On maximum graphics, I'm getting a silky smooth 100 plus frames per second, and the game itself looks very, very nice. Realm Royale can easily run on bad PCs too, as the minimum graphics look really bad, but that's perfect if your laptop isn't exactly the best. This further increases accessibility for this title, and it's a significant aspect that very few people mention. I now want to move our attention towards the developer, Hi-Rez, because if there's one thing I've learned after playing Tribes Ascend, Smite, and Paladins is that you don't trust Hi-Rez. When it comes to games they make, the studio is absolutely fantastic, consistently putting out fantastic titles that are worthy of your playtime. However, they also consistently screw up the balancing and direction of these games with their inconsistent nature and lack of communication, and they are more than fine of killing off a title just because they go and think of a better idea to go and make some money. However, in August, last year Hi-Rez went and split into 3 different dev teams, with each dev team taking a part of Hi-Rez's game collection, be it the MOBA called Smite, the class-based FPS called Paladins, or the Battle Royale game called Realm Royale. From this decision, each of the games have gone in an upward direction, with more regular updates and a hopeful outlook to the future. Updates for Realm Royale are going to be coming every 2 weeks, which is great, communication isn't that bad, and a public test server is being used, so I'm confident that Hi-Rez as a whole has gone and turned a new leaf, but we need to go and see more action, and hopefully that happens. So now let's get to the most important part of this video. Can Realm Royale succeed? Will it beat Fortnite? Okay, maybe not that far, but this game has a very good future ahead of itself, and I'm super excited to see what can happen. The combat is fast and fun, but also has a very important tactical nature, where using your brain and scoping out a fight is equally as important as pure skill. While mechanical skill is still needed, especially if you want to go and hit headshots with a sniper rifle and slug rifle, you need to know what class you have, what weapons abilities you have, and also what your opponent has. There's no point trying to go close range with a sniper rifle when your opponent has a venom pistol and you have no armor. You're going to be dominated majority of the time. So with that said, you need to scope out the fight, realize what you can and can't do, and adjust accordingly. It's not like Fortnite where every fight can be solved with building and shotguns. Realm Royale's gameplay is variable and it also depends on what part of the map you're fighting on, since you have to go and work around your surroundings. You can't fall back to one strategy every time you play, unlike Fortnite, and this keeps the action really fresh and really fun. This also means that the skill barrier to get into this game is quite low, as all you need to know is how to move, jump and shoot. The mechanical skill needed is nowhere near that of building in Fortnite, because if you're a new player and you hop in and people just crazy build and you get dominated, you feel very, very overwhelmed. But in Realm Royale, if you go and die to somebody that just has better aim than you, better movement than you, then it's not you're getting overwhelmed, it's just they're a better player. But building just seems like this amazingly complex thing that really is really difficult to go master. This means that new players can have an easy enough time learning the ropes, especially if they're with a friend, since Realm Royale is set out to be an easy to access game. The controls are simple, the weapons and abilities are easy to learn, and the default loadouts are perfectly fine to go and use, so new players can go and explore the game, not have to go and customize anything, it's just all at their leisure. But when they want to go and get more into the game, they'll realize there is more depth to the combat mechanics and the movement mechanics, and aiming really well will go and help you tons, especially if you're using those projectile weapons. But the real depth to this game comes in the strategic element, knowing class builds, knowing how to maximize your chances of killing an enemy. That in combination with the combat is what makes Realm Royale very exciting, because the combination of mechanical skill and using your head in terms of seeing what your opponent has and what you have, and then making a very calculated judgment. I also haven't even mentioned the chicken mechanic yet, but this is something that's extremely fresh and very unique to the Battle Royale genre. So basically, when you go and die in Realm Royale, you become a chicken, and so you go into a down state of sorts. You can't go and shoot, but you can jump and move, and for the next 20 or so seconds, if you stay alive, you will be revived automatically. It's a really cool concept and it works well with the loadout and rune systems, as you can go modify your chicken move speed, HP, time to revive, maximum HP as a chicken, so on and so on. It gives a little bit of leeway and it goes a long way, especially as the time to kill in this game can be extremely quick if you're against a new player. It also forces you to go and finish your kills. If you chicken two people in a duo and then that chicken form and are running around whatever, you have to go and finish those kills, because if they go and revive, they can go and double team you. It's relatively easy to go and find where the chickens are because they cluck very loudly and you can just go and track it by sound, but if they have a movement speed one, it could be a little bit difficult. If both of them revive, they can go and kill you, so you've got to go and finish them off. Now with that said, when they go and revive, they'll have no armor and very low HP, so even if they do revive, it's relatively easy to go and finish it off, but this really cool mechanic adds another layer of strategy, especially if you're in a really tense moment. I also want to go and touch on Realm Royale's tutorial because it is really fantastic. It makes it easy for new players to know what to do. You just go hop in, it says do this, do that, use this ability, fire this gun, blah blah blah, do this forge type stuff, and it go mount your horse, so on, drop in. It goes and shows all the basic mechanics and what to go and do, and it just goes and sets you up so you're not just dropping in with no idea on how to play the game. This is really simple and something that every Battle Royale game should have, and for some reason Fortnite just doesn't go and have it, maybe because so many people play it, I didn't think it's necessary, but to go and give your players like a basic understanding of how to go and play the game is very important. And from that, I want to go and emphasize that Realm Royale is much easier to go and get into than Fortnite. I'm not saying that Realm Royale is a better game than Fortnite, Fortnite's a better game than Realm Royale, whatever. I'm just saying, if you've never played a Battle Royale game before, this is probably the one you want to go and pick up, because you go and hop in, the game just tells you what to go and do, you hop in, you have some fun, you go and verse some bots, whatever. It's a pleasant experience. You're not just going to get demolished from day one. So with all of that praise out of the way, I want to go and give one very big critique of this game, and that's the RNG factor. Legendary weapons can still drop from crates, the armor regen rune is insanely overpowered, and getting decent drops early game is extremely important in order for you to go and succeed. If you go and get an SMG and a burst assault rifle versus somebody has a slug rifle, majority of the time you're going to die, especially if you don't have any armor. As the game goes on, the influence of RNG goes and drops off. Mid-game, late game, not too bad when it goes and comes to the RNG factor, because you can go and find your weapons and forge them and so on, but it's still something that needs to be addressed overall, and especially in the early game. Now, I was going to watch Baggins TV's latest Realm Royale video. Make sure to go and check him out, by the way. If you haven't, he's basically the only consistent Realm Royale YouTuber, and his videos are very, very good. But yeah, I was watching him, and he said that Hi-Rez should go and implement a switch of sort for legendaries. For the first 6 minutes, legendaries can't drop from chest. After 6 minutes, however, they can. It's a simple idea but an effective one, and somewhat irons out the RNG dependency that Realm Royale has right now. If you go and get like a legendary shotgun early game, you just go and sit in the corner, you go bang bang, you kill someone. That is very, very good. The shotgun overall, it's a pretty okay garbage weapon, but in that situation, very, very good. If you go and get, let's say, a legendary slug rifle early game, you're just going to be dominating people. Does so much damage, especially with no armor. So this needs to be, you know, ironed out a bit. This video is not meant to go and come across as a Fortnite hate fest, because I really like that game as well. I don't go and play it much now, but I do like watching streamers, and the gameplay is very, very cool to go and see. But Realm Royale has something special, and that needs to be congratulated. It's a simplistic, upfront game with a ton of depth underneath, and this is the perfect introductory Battle Royale game, especially for console players. Fortnite has far too much of a Battle Royale market share for me to go and make any predictions, but looking at the previous data, looking at what we've got, 120,000 people across, you know, all consoles and PC and whatnot, that is a good stat for a game that was basically dead only a few months ago. I was having a look at a Reddit post and people going and talking about Realm Royale, but it wasn't on the Realm Royale subreddit. And basically they were saying that the game was dead, it died in June, it's not worth playing, it's really, really bad. And so it's obvious that those players haven't gone and experienced this new version of Realm Royale, because a lot of things have been updated, and I think it's overall a really fun game to go and play. But with that said, those were PC players guaranteed. Console players, they haven't gone and experienced the bad version of Realm Royale, they've only gone and experienced the good version, and for people that haven't gone and tried out the game, there is the potential to. When Fortnite servers go down, what are people going to be playing that is free to play? Well, right now, the new competitor, the new boy on the block is Apex Legends, and that game looks damn good, but have a look at Paladins as a direct competitor to Fortnite. Not so much as it's going to go and take its whole player base away, but bit by bit, people from Fortnite that are just fed up about the building and the planes and just the chaos and overall just the sweat might come over the Realm Royale and get a very nice breath of fresh air. And I think that's what this game really goes and, you know, substantiates itself with. Now, with all of that said, I can't go and make any predictions about the future of Realm Royale, but looking at this extremely upward trajectory, I really think that Realm Royale could go and make a comeback. A very big comeback? Maybe not, but a comeback at least. How much of a comeback though? That remains to be seen. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to go and chuck a like rating and subscribe for more Realm Royale content. But for now, it's Undercover Dudes all the way from Down Under, out.